Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Harper, and I am a BCBA at the Autism Care for Toddlers Clinic. Today, I'll be talking about preventative strategies for reducing challenging behavior. So first, we'll start by reviewing the ABCs of behavior. So the A stands for antecedent, which is anything that happens before a behavior occurs. B is the behavior, or what does the individual do? And then C are the consequences, so anything that occurs immediately after the behavior. And this is what behavior analysts will look at when we're trying to determine the function of behavior. So why are the ABCs important? For one, we can identify and predict what triggers the problem behaviors. We can identify and predict what happens after the behavior. So, what will make the behavior continue to happen. And we can make the changes before and after the problem occurs to make problem behavior less likely to occur. So, in talking about the functions of behavior, the ABCs help us determine the function of behavior, and these functions can be categorized in 4 ways. One is a function of escape or avoidance, which means that an individual may be behaving to get away from aversive situations like instructions or other non-preferred situations. For example, hitting someone so they go away, or hiding to avoid going to a piano lesson. A function of attention means that someone is behaving in a way that usually results in attention, like pulling on someone's sleeve or crying or even just, saying hi. That's usually a way that we behave in order to get attention. A tangible function means that the behavior is successful in obtaining items or activities. For example, saying more please or whining to get a piece of candy. And finally, automatic reinforcement is when a behavior causes a favorable outcome regardless of other people or things in the environment. So if you're like rubbing a sore muscle, that's just you behaving on yourself and making something feel better. Or for sensory seeking individuals, that could be something like self-stimulatory behavior or stimming. While each of these functions could occur separately, behaviors might also be multiply controlled, so they're escaping something and getting a tangible, or they're escaping and getting attention. And so many factors can make situations more or less reinforcing. Understanding why behavior occurs helps us determine how we can arrange the environment in a way to promote safe and socially acceptable behavior. When we know what someone gets out of behaving that way, we can help teach them alternative ways to get what they want and need. Thus, function-based treatment is ideal, and using arbitrary reinforcers or treatments may be ineffective. So let's look at an example. When challenging behavior is meant to function as escape from schoolwork, for example, if you use timeout as an intervention, you could actually be reinforcing that behavior, and they'll behave that way again because they get to get out of schoolwork still. Another example is if a challenging behavior like acting out in class functions as a way to get attention from teachers, then by pulling them aside and talking to them in depth about the situation may reinforce that behavior. And again, the person may engage in that behavior again if they want attention from the teacher. So in talking about the functions, these are some ideas of things we might use, of interventions we might try when dealing with behaviors that that have a function of escape. So if we're looking to teach responses that are more appropriate but still serve the same function, we may provide support or guidance to complete a task and then take a break from it. We can also prompt a communication response like break please, that a teachers can honor so that they can still escape from the task, but in a safe way. For attention maintained behavior, we might ignore those behaviors as long as the individual is safe. And remember that providing vocalizations or eye contact or physical interaction can all constitute attention. Then once the behavior has stopped or at least decreased in magnitude, you can prompt a functional response to ask for attention, things like saying hi or lightly tapping someone's arm. For a tangible function, it may be useful to, again, prompt a communication response like more, please, or pointing to the item they want, and then perhaps figure out a clear, understandable schedule for when the items they want to ask for are available, because things like candy or like messy kinetic sand may not always be available. Okay, so we'll go over these 7 quick wins for managing and changing behavior to get results. So we'll go over each one of these and talk about them in the next slides. So to replace the negative behavior, it's important to replace most challenging behaviors with an appropriate behavior, more functional behavior. So when we work to make it so that the challenging behaviors no longer provides access to the reinforcer they want, but instead that a new proactive and replacement behavior will then result in that reinforcer instead of the challenging behavior. We want to make sure that this new behavior is frequently reinforced and rewarded. It should be noted that a replacement behavior is often not the long-term desired behavior that a person wants another individual to engage in, but a short-term alternative behavior that allows the individual to meet their need while they're learning new skills. And the replacement behavior should be easier and more effective, more efficient, meaning faster or reliable than the behavior of concern, and meet the same function as well as being socially acceptable. So some examples on this up here is like, I need help, please, is like exchanging a card. And so that's easier than sometimes, just using your words. If they're not nonverbal, then you might use a card. And it's also hopefully less response effort than screaming. Number 2 is to ensure the replacement behavior is sometimes incompatible with the challenging behavior. So the replacement behavior is what we teach the student to do instead of the challenging behavior. And negative behaviors usually communicate a lack of skills, so often we can look to teach an incompatible behavior. So basically that means that the negative challenging behavior and the new behavior cannot be done at the same time. This incompatible behavior procedure could be used to intervene with a child who is continually out of seat in the classroom. So if it's the behavior that you want to see is topographically incompatible with roaming around the classroom, that would be something like staying seated. And so a teacher would then reduce out of seat behavior by systematically reinforcing the child to be seated. Another example could be if a young child who's like watching television is playing with their hair, molding their hand, that is maybe causing some tissue damage, we can teach them to instead manipulate like a teddy bear or a fidget toy. Some other incompatible behaviors include, that you can't scream and drink water at the same time, or whistle or sing. Instead of hitting, you can teach them put their hands in their top pocket, or sit quietly at a table. For eloping or running away, sitting in a chair or spinning in a circle are incompatible. And instead of refusing to complete a task, you'd want them to complete the task or say yes. The third quick win is to select and use some non-traditional reinforcers. I know we want to use as many natural reinforcers as possible, but for some people, praise is not what they're looking for. They need kind of a little extra boost from some of these non-traditional reinforcers. So it can be it depends on the individual. And so whatever's a reinforcer for me may not be for you. And we should look to identify a wide range of reinforcers. Think about any interests your student or child may have. Observe, make ongoing observations, and see what they talk about or gravitate towards. It's also important to switch out these options frequently as I may get bored of some items. And you can even create reinforcement menus like the ones on the screen. As you can see, like there's pictures, some people wrote it out. And sometimes there's like those coupons that some people give as gifts sometimes. um, and so even examples like being allowed to tear paper, like maybe that's not exciting to you, but maybe that's exciting to some of our sensory seekers. Using a bin that is, it's okay for them to throw these items, in the bin or something like that. Maybe they want to talk about a topic they really like or put together an art activity. So not everyone can work for good job as although like that's what happens in school a lot. So consider using some non-traditional reinforcers. Our fourth quick win is using language that help. None of us win during a power struggle, so there are a couple things we can do with our language to help prevent this. Nonverbal language should be calm and respectful, so even consider your eyes and body language. All types of attention can be valuable. And research has suggested that even that upwards of 80% of communication is nonverbal. So just, keep those things, keep that in mind when you're communicating with an upset learner. Be direct, and when you say no, mean it, and then tell them what they can or can't do instead. So like as you see in the bubbles above, we can't do that right now, but you can blank, or oh, good idea. First we have to do this, then you can play with that, or you can play with this or that. This other thing's not available. Similarly, try to focus on what we want them to do and not what you don't. So keep conversations on the positive behaviors that we want to see more of. Avoid ultimatums when possible, and reduce sarcasm when possible. There's a time and a place for it, but when we're trying to be direct, that's more helpful. The fifth quick win is to look to see if you can make environmental changes. So we can make environmental modifications to implement and embed interventions, and we can change the setup of an area, modify materials or equipment, or simplify a task in terms of duration or difficulty. So some examples might be placemats taped to the table with reminders of where the plate and cup go, to follow a mealtime routine. This book here of Brown Bear is laminated and covered in contact paper to add some durability, so the children are less likely to tear pages. A flip book might be shown to students to help them learn how to build a train out of Lego. So it's like if they're upset, then if they don't know how to build certain things, they can use a visual reminder so that they can be more engaged in play. And then finally, some small environmental manipulations, like allowing a quiet area for them if they need a break, or to use headphones may be helpful for some children who need to calm down. And then even like a placement of where the adults are placed in a classroom or at home so that they can be available to help or give attention. Number 6 is to think about whether you are responding or reacting. And so a good example of this can be related to something the CEO of Google talked about in the social media a little while ago. It's titled The Cockroach Theory. So this is a story. At a restaurant, cockroach suddenly flew somewhere and sat on a lady. She started screaming out of fear. With a panic-stricken face and trembling voice, she started jumping with both her hands, desperately trying to get rid of the cockroach. Her reaction was contagious, as everyone in her group also got panicky. The lady finally managed to push the cockroach away, but it landed on another lady in the group. Now, it was the turn of the other lady to continue the drama. The raider rushed forward to the rescue. In the relay of throwing, the cockroach next fell upon the waiter. The waiter stood firm, composed himself, observed the behavior of the cockroach on his shirt, and when he was confident enough, he grabbed it with his fingers and threw it out of the restaurant. So a few thoughts we can pick up while analyzing this situation could be, was the cockroach really responsible for the dramatic behavior? If so, then why was the waiter not disturbed? He handled it to near perfection without any chaos. So there's a difference between a response, which is pre-planned and considered, versus a reaction. A response is planned and purposeful and takes ongoing practice. It's done with intention while thinking about the cause of the challenging behavior. A reaction is going off of emotion. It may feel good in the moment or feel like it's a reflex, but it often is not very productive. So you may snap or yell when you feel frustrated, and this reaction could feel okay in the moment, but it could also make the challenging behavior worse later. It can be very helpful to take a break for a moment if you need to and focus on calming down and not taking things personally. And that's okay to take a break. And seek help when you need it. It's hard to manage challenging behaviors by yourself all the time. So reaching out to, seminars like this or other teachers or parents or clinicians can help you manage the behavior as a team. It really does take a village. The second part of this presentation is going to focus on some strategies to prevent challenging behavior before it occurs. So proactive strategies are assist in helping decrease the likelihood of challenging behavior from happening in the future and are designed to be implemented before challenging behavior occurs as much as possible. The goal of using these proactive strategies is not only to prevent challenging behaviors, but to promote positive behaviors, to help us clarify expectations, and to promote independence. We will discuss 6 proactive strategies that may be helpful. You want to increase predictability, increase praise for appropriate behavior, provide effective instructions and commands, use brief and easy tasks with more difficult ones, provide choices, use functional communication training, and practice that skill. So first, we'll increase predictability. So it's important to increase this the predictability of what is going to happen next. Visuals can help with predictability and everyone benefits from them. For example, we obey traffic signs and we use calendars. Visuals tell us where to line up in the department store and what to wear for the day, just to name a few. Using visuals as predictors is very common. When individuals can predict the events throughout their day, they're more likely to be engaged and less likely to display challenging behavior. There's a lot going on and changing at any given time, right? So instead of worrying when a change will occur, we can rest easy and focus. This is especially true for autistic individuals who have difficulties with changes in routine, and especially abrupt changes in routine. One way to increase predictability is to establish routines. Transitions are frequently problematic, so offering signals and cues of upcoming changes can be effective in preventing distress. Other approaches to facilitate predictability include providing information about the content or what you'll be doing, or about the duration, how long it will take, or about the consequences of future events. So visually displaying this information is even better. Here are some examples. So as you can see, there are some visual supports up here that can show expectations and establish a routine. These can be in the form of photo schedules, lists, etc., and these can look multiple ways. Here's just a few examples. In some cases, it may be beneficial to indicate when one activity is complete. Like in the morning routine, you can check off when they've completed something. In this session example, when the caregiver or teacher or individual themselves can check off what they've done for the day or move their pack from one side to the other. And it shows what they've completed. And just as a pro tip on both the session schedule and the orange schedule ship, you'll see that the icons are movable by Velcro. Velcro allows the schedule to be changeable and movable. It is a helpful office supply for this type of visual. Additionally, you may create your own materials in a Word document if that's accessible to you, or draw or write a schedule, so long as the individual can understand it. And Paid Teachers is a website where many professionals have created visuals that you can pay for, usually at a low price, download and print. These are some additional ways we can increase predictability. First, then boards can demonstrate what will happen after they complete what is being asked of them. In this case, basically when the individual completes their work, then they will be able to play. Token boards is depicted with the stars at the bottom of the screen, can depict how many things they will have to complete before they get the reward. For example, if James stays in his seat for 1 minute, he might get a star. If he sits for 5 minutes, 5 stars, and then he can have lunch with a friend. As the stars are placed, James can see how much longer he has to sit. We all know how much more bearable it is to continue doing something that is not fun when we know it'll be over. Like when working out, I like to know how many more squats are left, or I would quit long before they were over. Additionally, you can provide a menu of self-regulation strategies when someone is upset and especially dislikes being talked to when upset. You could provide a menu of strategies for them to choose from, and that narrows down all the alternative behaviors that they could engage in down to a simple few, and may be easier to understand than spoken language. Finally, you can use visual timers to indicate how long they have to engage in a certain task or how long they will have to wait. The timer with numbers on it is a physical timer that uses the red space to indicate how much time is left, and the Ducky timer is an app for your phone or tablet called Children's Countdown Timer. The second strategy is to increase praise for the behavior that you like to see. Research has demonstrated that delivering praise to individuals when they engage in appropriate behavior increases the likelihood they will continue to engage in appropriate behavior in the future. If you think about it, we all like to hear what we're doing well. Be on the lookout to catch them being good, even when it seems small, especially for hard behavior or behaviors that are new or novel to them. Oughta, shoulda, wanna is not a reason to withhold praise. For example, one might think teens oughta, shoulda, wanna, or ought to, or should want to do chores to help around the house, but the truth is there are way better things they could be doing, so it's important to catch them doing these things we want to see more of, like bringing in the recycling bins and showing your appreciation. When giving praise, try using behavior-specific praise or praise that tells the individual exactly what they are doing right. This is the most effective in promoting appropriate behavior because it tells them what they did and should continue to do. For example, in the picture here, the woman is telling the child, "How nice of you to share your shapes." Unfortunately, it can be hard sometimes to use praise with individuals who engage in challenging behavior, but increasing how often you praise is a simple strategy that can have a very big impact on behavior. You can use your attention to help individuals learn the behaviors you like and want to see more of by creating a big contrast in experience. This means giving a lot of attention and being interesting when the individual is getting it right, and being more neutral and limiting attention when they are engaging in misbehavior. For example, when an individual accepts having to wait by saying, okay, but he does it so by saying, okay, like yelling, you can say, thank you, in a neutral tone, versus when they say, okay, nicely, you can say, thanks for understanding, man, just 2 minutes, I promise. Third, you can provide effective instructions. Effective delivery of instructions and requests is a key strategy for promoting appropriate behavior. Features of effective instruction or requests include getting their attention. They don't necessarily have to look at you, but it's important that they acknowledge that you are talking to them so that you know that they're going to attend to your instruction. Another step is to state that the instruction clearly in the form of a do command. This is so they know what is expected of them. For example, say, please give me the truck, rather than can you give me the truck, or stop crashing the truck. Additionally, comments like be careful can encompass a world of meaning, so avoid those and be specific. You should also give one instruction at a time in a firm but not angry voice and wait for the individual to complete the instruction. It is much easier to remember and complete one task at a time and to determine when the task has been completed. For example, ask them to put your coat away, wait for them to put their coat away, and then ask them to come sit for dinner. It's also useful to use a firm voice to help show the difference between when you're playing and when you're being serious. And finally, use a calm tone with limited comments. If you answer every why question and continue to explain things, you may be allowing the individual to postpone the completion of the task at hand. You should also limit the amount of negative or additional attention if the child is not following the direction or if they continue to ask questions. Practicing often will contribute to better learning as well. The best way to do this is to start when they're not engaging in challenging behavior. Start by providing instructions like modeling appropriate behavior and then giving them a chance to try. When giving instructions, consider if all of these questions are answered. Does the individual know what they need to do? Do they know how much they need to do? Like, do they need to put away your toys versus put away your cars? Will they know when the task is complete? When saying sit still describes what they need to do, but not for how long, or what would signal that they don't have to sit still any longer? And will they know what they have to do next? For individuals with less language skills, some of these details may be overwhelming. However, for individuals with more language skills, it may be beneficial to include all of this information to improve specification that will lead to successful completion of the task. Now, our tip number 4 is to intersperse easy tasks with hard ones. Another and consider priming or telling the individual what's coming next and how much time they have until it happens. So again, increasing the predictability of what they're going to do, but also building some momentum. For example, when we look at a task like cleaning our room, that can be daunting. But first, if we start with throw the trash away, put the cups in the kitchen, did it, then move to fold and clean clothes and sort socks. We want to be sure to start with tasks that we know they will be successful with and give them praise along the way. Then add tasks that they might consider to be harder. For cleaning up toys, you might start with put the blue car in. Nice. Now put 2 trains in. Great. Now can you go get the train check and put the whole thing away? Thanks for cleaning so nicely. Tip number 5 is to provide choices. Giving anyone choices makes it more likely that they are going to buy into what we are asking them to do, and it gives them a chance to feel like they're appreciated. And in general, all of us would rather have choices. Some ideas include choosing the order of the tasks or activities they're going to do, the materials you can use, how to complete the task. Are they going to do it fast or slow? How to get somewhere? Are we going to hop or crawl? Where they want to sit, which chair, who they want to work with, if they want to work for, the toy or the game. Choosing which task they want to do, or fun things they want to wear or use. When using choices, they should be things that can be done right now. It's not math versus watch TV or even something entertainable like go to Disney World. Math has to get done sometimes. So how we get there maybe, but how we get there maybe doesn't really matter. They can use a pen or a pencil. They can sit in whichever chair they want, Something to remember about choices also is that ideally we shouldn't be fighting about making a choice. If that comes up after offering a choice, just make it for the child and move on. These choices can be vocal or visual. Visual could help could maybe be less threatening. And as you can see, visuals are helpful when the choice process too, especially for the individuals who do not have as much extensive language. The star board above there has tokens like we saw in the predictability slides, and the choice board includes icons that they can choose from and put on there. To the right, there's also another example of a visual menu of choices that one can choose from to let you know what they will be want by reading or by pointing. For individuals who need more tangible support, you may hold up two items like the apple and the orange and have them point to the one they want. And in a pinch, I've also used my hands to act as symbolic choices. For example, you might hold up your left hand and say, after work, do you want to go outside? And then hold up the right hand or watch TV. And then they kind of like pick from your hands that way. And the final strategy I have for you is to use communication training. Functional communication training, also known as FCT, is an evidence-based treatment that helps learners communicate for specific reasons. FCT replaces challenging behaviors with a positive or proactive statement. These can be vocal, gestural, or pictorial. They could be used to teach ways to ask for a break, request extra time to help, or ask for you to play, or for your attention. It is based on why challenging behavior is happening. So if you recall in our initial review of the functions, this training can also be a proactive strategy to teach a couple strong and valuable statements, such as asking for a break, like we said, for help or for your attention. When this is new, appropriate, they use a new appropriate response. We give them what they asked for, or we reinforce that behavior. In the diagram below, you can see that if they usually escape work by running away or hitting, when they use a phrase like break please, you provide a break to them. When they are just learning, this new communication tool will provide prompts to help them. For example, if you look back at the diagram, if the individual starts engaging in inappropriate behavior to get their peers' attention, like hitting them or yelling, hey, then you can say, play with me. And when they repeat the phrase, the peers should honor their request. Over time, they may learn to use the positive functional communication response instead of engaging in challenging behavior, which would be the ideal outcome. You should also know that communication isn't just vocal. Communication can be a card exchange. It could be sign language, pointing, leading, other body language. So the individual may say, play with me, or they will learn the sign for play, or even exchange a card with a single word on it. You will have to decide what is most appropriate for your learner, or even include them on the decision if they can. This was obviously a very quick run through of some general strategies, but it's important to consider many other things like what types of instructions does the individual best respond to, a one-step instruction, two-step at a time, or visuals. Does the individual do better with verbal reminders or visual supports? Does the individual do better with the transition warning, like priming? Can the individual make choices when given options? And if so, what's the appropriate ratio of choices? Does the individual like social praise and attention? What appropriate behavior does the individual already do that could be focused on or rewarded more? Can the physical environment be changed to reduce problematic behavior? Can we increase motivation using the individual's interests, such as with first then? And when giving an instruction, do I consider the individual's skill level? Overall, you should decide ahead of time what strategy or combination of strategies you will use based on the function if necessary and the resources you have available. Then you will identify when to apply the strategy. Don't forget to be consistent across people, places, and rules, and reinforce the behavior you want to see as much as possible. So we'll go over a quick case example, going over some of the strategies we talked about today. So Andrew is a 7th grader that throws heavy items like his computer and the water bottle when he gets stuck on a math problem in class. After he does this, his favorite paraprofessional will spend the rest of the period helping with his work. So let's consider the quick wins. So for the first two, we might consider what the function of his throwing is. In this case, I think he might be getting attention, and he gets help on his math homework. So, and there could also be this sensory component as well of throwing the items. However, he also gets help with his work. So now that we've analyzed the function and we've identified the challenging behaviors, we can think about a replacement behavior. So instead of throwing, we could do some type of incompatible behavior. So like raising your hand to ask for help, saying the teacher's name, possibly the incompatible behavior for like a sensory component could be clenching their fists or squishing a toy tightly. For the next three, how we might apply the next 3 wins is at first we not only want to reward Andrew with the help he is asking for, but we can provide additional reinforcers and consider things like any special interests he might have or breaks from doing math work. So let's think about the language we might use when he throws things for the using language that helps win. So some of the tips that might help us is using maybe nonverbal language, being calm and respectful, being direct with what we want him to do or explaining what was done incorrectly. And again, we're going to focus on what we want him to do rather than don't want him to do. So like he needs to do his work, avoiding ultimatums of like, if you don't do this, then you're going to go to the principal's office. And again, reducing the sarcasm. Which I know could be easy with perhaps a middle schooler or hard to do for to avoid doing when you're with a middle schooler. But in these moments, it's important to be serious. Looking at how we might make environmental changes, we could possibly modify the math assignment by having a complete fewer problems, starting with easier problems, getting extra help on the hard ones, or highlighting the hard ones as a reminder to ask for help. And as for the final 2 wins, remember to respond instead of react and seek help from others when you need it. It can be hard to determine what part of the math problems are hard for him, and a second pair of eyes could really help you out. The more information you have from the individual and the caregivers will also help determine the best mode of communication and the best rewards or reinforcers to use. Another case example we have is Joanne, who's 4 years old and uses minimal vocal language. Joanne tantrums every time that her mother tells her it's time to clean up her toys. Joanne's mom usually ends up letting her play for longer and then puts the toys away for her. So for this example, let's go through the 6 preventative strategies. So with the first 3, her tantrums may be increasing because her mother is reinforcing her challenging behavior. So one way to perhaps increase the predictability of the task her mother is going to ask her to do could be a first then board, or using 5 tokens to indicate how many things she has to pick up. And then, maybe she gets lunch after that, and then, or even using a visual schedule showing her like we play and then we go eat lunch. So she knows she's going to go eat lunch afterwards, but first you have to like finish your play sequence, which part of that could be cleaning up. Some ways we can increase praise and provide more high quality praise is to catch her being good. So she angrily threw 1 toy in the bin. When she puts one away nicely, they can make a nice comment about it. And by creating that big contrast, so in a more neutral tone when she throws it away, throws it in there more angrily versus when she puts it in nicely. And then her mom could provide effective instructions by making sure she obtains attention, tells her what to do, putting the toy in the bin versus just saying clean up, using a firm tone and not negotiating or answering why questions. For the next 2 strategies, we can make the task easier by saying like, put away 1 Peppa toy. We can even make it fun by saying like, make Peppa fly in the bin or something like that. And then they could provide choices by Again, like say, should you fly in or jump in? Do you want to do 4 toys or 8 toys? Do you want me to help you or do it all by yourself? Do you want 1 more minute or 2 more minutes to play? So just integrating choice in that way. Before we look at strategy 6, let's think about what might be the function of Durant's behavior. So if we're looking at our 4 functions here, we might consider that tangible is most likely in this case, tangible or escape. It's important to know this information because it helps us know that why they are communicating to us so that we can know how to help them get what they need and know the appropriate response we want to teach so that not only her mom understands it, but other caretakers, teacher, and people in her life. So for strategy 6, given what we know about the function of behavior and her language skills, instead of tantruming, we might teach her to sign more for more time or toys, or say, I want toys on a speech device or a card exchange. And remember, when teaching and practicing this skill, prompt the correct response. For example, provide the instruction to clean up and then immediately show her the sign for more, for her to imitate. And then when she does it, reinforce and give her more time with the toys. And overall, it's important to remember that everyone's an individual. If you have met one individual with autism, you've met one individual with autism. And so it's important to just pay attention to their needs and what they're communicating to you with their challenging behavior.